Jai Shri Ram, Sat Shri Akal, and greetings to everyone from wherever you're watching. And this one's going to be special because this is a game from 1959. And if you've been following chess, you know what happened in 1959, how much 1959 candidates has been still talked about, and you know the name, and you know the legend himself, Misha. And this is one of his game, and this is one such special game because the opponent is also a world champion, and his name is Robert James Fischer. And if you know from the timestamp that in 1959 Tal was an absolute monster, so you know that this game is going to be one hell of a game. Fortunately for Tal, he's going to have to face an attack as well because 1959 Bobby Fischer was somewhere around 16 to 20, so he was a very fierce opponent as well. So now it's going to be one hell of a clash. So I'm not going to keep you waiting for long. So without further ado, let's start with this spectacular game. So here Fischer with the white pieces, and he starts with e4. And you know what Tal is going to go for. He goes for the Sicilian defense. He goes for c5. He's ready for a fight, and we have this knight to f3, but just this d6 going for the main line, and we have this d4, and we see a trade. C captures, knight captures, and just going for this knight to f6, just targeting that pawn, and you're gonna have to defend it. So here knight to c3, but just this a6 going for this knight drop variation and Tal's speciality. So here we have this. You can go for many lines. You can go for this bishop to c. You can have many lines. You can go for bishop to d3. You can go for bishop to c4. But here Fischer chooses to go for this bishop to c4, and we have this e6, just nullifying that bishop's influence over that diagonal. And we have this bishop to b3, just getting that bishop back. You don't want that b5 to come with the tempo. So here b5 nonetheless. Tal is definitely ready for a fight, and here Fischer shows that he's ready for a fight as well. He goes for this spectacular f4, and here we have b4, just putting that knight on a rim right from the opening, and you have to move that knight. So here you don't want to move that knight somewhere around here because that's not the main move, and that's not how Sicilian is supposed to be played. So here just knight to a4, and we have this again. Tal goes for the pawn. He goes for this knight caps on e4, and getting that knight centralized, and we have this castles by Fischer. You can see that it's just move 10. Fischer has already castled. He has already developed 3 pieces, while Tal is still lacking in development. So if Fischer gets a hold of the position, it's going to get very difficult for Tal to hold. And we have just g6. You're going to have to fink into that bishop and go for that dragon Sicilian variation. Here Fischer shows why he's such a spectacular player. Even from his young years, he was definitely a fierce player. He goes for this spectacular and definitely one of the moves that you want to play while you're attacking. You want to create chances, and Fischer goes for this spectacular f5. And when a move like this is thrown on your face, you have to calculate a lot. You have to see all the lines, and if any one of you are considering e captures, you should not go for it like this, because here just go for this bishop to e3, just developing that bishop. And after this bishop to g7, you have to get that king to safety, otherwise this rook is going to join the party and it could get very dangerous. So here after bishop to d5, just attacking that rook. You can see that that rook does not have many squares left. So here after rook to a7, you're going to get this very nice discovery with this knight caps on f5, and now you can see that the rook is threatened. Your bishop is also threatened, and it's very much difficult to defend both. So here all you can do is here give up the exchange, otherwise you're going to get a piece down. So here after bishop caps on f5, you go for this bishop caps on a7, and yes, you're in exchange down. And right from the opening, it would not have been good if Tal had been for that variation. But Tal being Tal, he does not fall for such tricks. He goes for this g caps on f5. He does not go the other way. But here again, Fischer not scared at all. He goes for this knight caps on f5, and definitely right on point, because you cannot capture that knight. You could capture that knight, but otherwise you have to calculate it very precisely and to the end, because here if you go for this e caps on f5, then you get this very spectacular queen to d5, and then your rook is hanging, there's mate being threatened. I mean, how are you going to defend both? And then you're going to have to go exchange down. So here after bishop to e6, just defending against that mate, now you go for this queen caps on a8, and only after this bishop to g7, now trying to get that king to safety, you go for this bishop to e3, just developing that bishop. And here after castles, now you get this queen to b7, going after those queenside pawns, but you have this a5. And if you play the c3, just trying to get that knight into the game after trading. But here after knight to d7, now definitely knowing Tal, he would not have gone for that pawn, because here after c caps on b4, you don't want to capture that pawn, you don't want to recapture, but instead there is an even amazing move. You go for this knight to e5, just sacrificing another pawn. And yes, Fischer is going to be up 3 pawns, but it's going to be a trade-off, because here after rook a d1, now you go for this knight to g4, and now you know what's coming, because here after bishop to f4 is such a crucial move in this position, because you cannot allow that bishop to get hold of that diagonal, because now you're going to see the problem, because here just queen to h4, and now you can see that there's a lot of pieces against the white king. I mean, queen is already eyeing here, the bishop is defending, but how long is that bishop going to defend? So yes, Fischer would have been up in this position, but here with the queen on the other side of the board, not defending the king, and here with all these pieces against Fischer's king, it would have been a devastation. So here not going for such lines, here just rook to g8, Tal showing that he is definitely not going to castle kingside, but where is he going to put the king? Because here the queen side is completely bust open, and king side he's definitely not going to castle. So Tal is definitely going to keep the king in the center, and Fischer is definitely going to take advantage of that. So here Fischer goes for even spectacular move. He goes for this spectacular bishop to d5. I mean, look at this position. Both of the pieces are hanging, but both of the pieces cannot be captured. I mean, it's such a beautiful, beautiful move, because even now, if you decide to go for this bishop captures, you get this amazing queen captures. And now the rook is threatened. You cannot, you have to move the rook. And even if you decide to give up the exchange, now you go for this bishop captures. I mean, white is just not going to care. White is just going to capture with this rook captures. And now there's too many things being threatened. Their rook is also being hanging. I mean, it's just a pathetic position to have. And Tal, foreseeing all of this, he just goes for this rook to a7, just getting that rook out of harm's way. And here Fischer just decides to trade. He goes for this bishop caps on e4, just getting that knight. Tal goes for this e caps on f5, the bishop caps on f5. We have this rook to e7, just getting that rook to a defensive square. You have to defend that king against all sorts of weird checks. And here definitely Fischer had an amazing opportunity to get a hold in this position, but just try out your luck and find out what would you play in this position. Just pause the video and try out your luck while I give you a couple of seconds. So congratulations to everyone who's able to find this move, and the move is not the ones that I'm sure you were thinking, because it's such a difficult move to spot. To know in a position when you have to wait, when you have to not trade, not do anything with your pieces, just play a waiting move, and the move is actually c3. The only move that gives you an advantage in this position. White gives you an advantage because here you can see that black is in a very much tough spot. He cannot even trade pieces because here just king is in the center. I mean, the rook is defending it. With all these pieces being tied down, it's a very much difficult position to hold for Tal. And here after bishop to b7, now going for that pawn, now you defend with this bishop to h3. Just an amazing defensive resource that white has in this position. And here after rook to g6, now you have to get that bishop there and get the king to safety. So here after bishop to f4, now you can see that these bishops are absolute monsters. I mean, this bishop is not even allowing the king to go to the other side of the board, and as long as that king remains on the center of the board, it's going to be white who will be up in advantage. So here perhaps not trading your advanced pieces was the best way to go, but Fischer chose it to go the other way around. He goes for this bishop caps on c8 and he trades one piece. So here after queen captures, now we have this bishop to f4, just developing that piece, and Fischer thought that it would be an easy game from here onwards, but he should have thought again because he was playing against Tal, the magician, and here queen to c6 was played. But here Fischer asks for a queen trade. He goes for this queen to f3, asking for a queen trade, and you definitely don't want to trade queens, because here if you trade queens, the rook is going to double up on the f file and it's going to be an hellish position to defend against Fischer. So here queen caps on e4, Tal calculates precisely, caps on d6, just going for that rook, and Tal happily gives up the rook because he goes for this queen to c6. And here after bishop caps on b8, you don't want to capture that rook, you don't want to take the exchange when you're getting a free piece, but it's not a free piece because you get this queen to b6 check, nicely connecting with the king and also going for that bishop. So here after to h1, now you go for this queen captures on b8. And the best way to go about this position is not at all easy to spot. I mean, just going for that queen to c6 check seems so tempting because your rooks are definitely going to join the party as well. But the best move in this position was, you can pause the video, but I'm definitely going to tell you, because here the best move was just a rook a to e1. You want to trade that defender and then you want to go for the king, because here the position is actually, surprisingly enough, even Tal is up a piece, it's still a draw, because here after king to d8, now you go for this rook caps on e7, and after bishop captures, now you go for this amazing queen to d5 check. And only after bishop to d6 blocking, that bishop is defended by the queen, hopefully all of you are seeing. So here after rook to f6, just piling up on that bishop, now you bring in the final piece and defend your bishop because you go for this rook to g6. And after rook caps on f7, finally grabbing that pawn, you go for this queen to b5, asking for a queen trade, but white is definitely going to decline. If you go for the queen trade, you're going to be down a piece and it's definitely going to be a losing position. So queen to a8 check, but here bishop to b8 blocking. Now that bishop is not doing anything, it's just serving as a defender. And here after rook to f8, you go for this king to c7. And here after rook f7 check, you could choose to go for the repetition of moves, but if you want to go up the board and try out some chances, here king to d6. And now what you have to find after all of these moves, you have to spot this queen to e4, and that's the move that gives you an advantage because there are just a lot of threats in this position. And here queen to e5, the only move that defends it all, but now you lose another pawn. Queen caps on b4 and that pawn falls with a check, and now you're up 3 pawns against the price of a bishop, which is equal. So even now the position is actually a draw. But as like all of us, Fischer went for the intuitive approach. He definitely thought that there was something in the position, and he went for this queen to c6 check. But this queen to c6 check is definitely one of Fischer's worst nightmares, because there's just nothing in the position, and he was basically seeing ghosts. Because here, the best defensive resource that Tal had in this position was this rook d7 blocking. You don't want to move the king. If you move the king, you're in a lost position. Here, rook a to e1 check, and just bishop to e7 blocking. And here, after bishop rook captures, just sacrificing that rook, because you're gonna, if you capture that, then you're gonna get this rook either way. So here just king captures, but here you get this amazing queen to e6 check, and after king to f8 you finally grab that rook with this queen caps on d7. I mean, even with this king being on the center of the board, there's nothing that's stopping all these checks, and queen is on the d7 square. I mean, this queen is not even anywhere near the king, but still the position is very much winning for black. And yes, chess can be cruel sometimes. So here queen to d6, just asking for a queen trade. You cannot afford to trade queen, so here queen to b7 was played, but just as king to g6. And here after c3, now you play this a5, but queen to c8 check. And now, if you're able to get out of all the checks, you will still win the game because you're up in advantage. So here king to g7, but just queen to c4. And after bishop to d8, now Fischer decided to trade. So here c captures, here a captures, but just this 3-3. And yes, it seems scary opening up the king like that, but there was nothing better. So here, Tal taking the advantage of trading queens, he goes for queen to c6 check, and now you have to trade. Here, just Fischer trying out last few moves. He goes for rook to e4 blocking, but now Tal is definitely happy with the trade, because here queen captures, rook captures, and now you're just up 2 pawns against a bishop. But here Fischer is definitely going to try, because a lot is at stake. So here rook to b6, and here just king to g2, and after king to f6, just getting that king into the game. And we have king to f3, king to e5, you have to get king to e3, and after bishop to g5 check, just getting that king out of the way, and we have this king to d5. And now you have to move the rook, and definitely, and moving the rook, I mean, where are you going to move the rook? You can move the rook to a passive square, and there's pretty much nothing here. So here just king to d3 was played, just defending that rook, but just bishop to f6. And here rook to c2, but just this bishop to e5. Here rook to e2, bishop rook to f6, and here after rook to c2, here rook to f3 check was played, king moves back attacking that rook, and now you have to move the rook. So here rook to f7, and it definitely seems like with this rook cutting off the king all the way over here, it's difficult to make progress. But that's not the case, because you can always go for these pawns, you can always get the king closer, and as long as this king is not getting off these squares, I mean, it's impossible to do anything. Here king to d3 was played, but just this bishop to d4, and now you can see that just wasting a tempo with that bishop to d4 move, just constricting that king so that it cannot move to the dark squares. So here just a3 was played, trying out just something, but even trades are just much worse. Here b3, but now just this rook to c8, and here after bishop caps on b2, just grabbing that pawn. And now you know that once that pawn is gone, there's pretty much nothing advantage. You have one pawn for a bishop, and it's just completely losing. But here still Fischer went on, he goes for this rook to d8 check, but here king to c6, and after rook to b8 we have this rook to f3 check, and we after king to c4 we have this rook to c3 check, and only after this king to b4, king to c7, rook to b5, and we have this bishop to a1. And now the final blow here, a4 was tried by Fischer, but now comes this b2, a spectacular move, because now you cannot grab that rook. If you grab that rook, now the promotion comes with a check, and you're pretty much losing, because your rook is going to fall as well. You can defend that rook, but the rook against a queen and a bishop is just completely losing. So here after b2, Fischer resigned the game, and in just 52 moves, Tal got his spectacular win against Fischer. I mean, it's just a beauty that Tal can defend a position from an absolutely constricted position like this and convert that into win is surprisingly a miracle. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming up with another piece of like this, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys very soon.